it was that moment. I can remember it vividly, being a sophomore, like 19, 20-year-old in college at the bottom of this apartment stairwell. And I was just like, this is enough. I can no longer live my life this way. And so from that point going forward, I decided to go cold turkey on virtually everything. I did my best with pornography and masturbation. I absolutely stayed away from drugs and alcohol, smoking Mary J. Nothing wrong with any of these substances necessarily inherently, but if you're not using them intentionally, it's easy to get kind of carried away and distracted and using it as a coping mechanism. And that was for sure me. So that's when I started the road of like becoming more in tune with my body and developing more mindfulness and awareness around morning routine and habits and things like this, honestly. Podcasts, which weren't really popular back in the day, but things like YouTube. I started just subscribing to different YouTubers and started learning about mindfulness and like holistic health and medicine, and truly too also got into like bodybuilding and strength training and practicing more yoga. So from like basically 21 to where I'm at now at 29, I've just been on fire.
What's up, brother?
Hey.
How's it going?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
Good. I was just watching some of your Instagram videos, and you're speaking my language of the law of attraction and meditation and morning routines and stuff. So I did hit record, but if let me know if you're ready or not ready.
100%.
We are here today, ladies and gentlemen, with Devon Suggs. Devon Suggs on Instagram. Follow him. He's got some really positive messages, and I was just getting some joy from watching it. So I could use that. So I appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for joining me this evening.
Absolutely, it's a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on here.
Yeah, because you have like a message, and you're putting it out there and spreading positivity, and I try to do that, and we all fail in the light of the Lord sometimes. Just kidding, but we do the best we can and try to stay positive, but you're definitely putting it out there. Where is this coming from, and why are you doing all this?
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. It's a great question. So I'm grateful to wake up every single day purpose driven, mission focused, and I'm here to be a beacon of light and to be a refuge for people who are lost. Lost in the sauce is what I like to call it as well, because I was definitely lost in the sauce there for a hot minute. And I think originally a lot of my inspiration, I'm grateful to have been bred really well, coming from an incredible background from family. My father is a chiropractor and functional medicine doctor. So growing up with more of that alternative medicine mindset and always kind of questioning the authority or the status quo. My mother is Hispanic, and she's this just all around fashionista, entrepreneur, go-getter, lion, badass woman, a boss of a woman. And from early, my brother and I have just been groomed. My mom would always lecture us from picking us from school in elementary and middle school, just like telling us about the laws of leadership and life. And at the time, my brother and I sort of took it for granted. We were tired of like the lecturing and all the positive mindset stuff. But ultimately, what she was doing is really prepping and priming both of my brother and I to, develop these mindsets of leadership, of accountability, responsibility, of service and contribution, and just a lot of incredible things. So grateful for that. I will share, though, that in high school and college, to a certain degree, I got lost in the sauce, found myself, smoking way too much weed, playing a lot of video games, barely graduating high school, and then going into college and not really knowing what I wanted to do with my life. And there's a great phrase I love, that's this. It's, if you don't have direction in your life, and if you don't have goals, if you're not oriented towards something, then guess what? You're disoriented. And when you're disoriented, you're leaving your growth to randomness. And leaving your growth to randomness is the surefire way to know that you will always live in the land of mediocrity. And that's where I found myself, freshman and sophomore year of college. Didn't know what I wanted to study or do necessarily, was just lost in the sauce. Eventually got, caught up with some of the authorities and police and roommates and drug dealings and sort of a whole host of stuff. And was addicted to pornography and masturbation, was just deep into alcoholism, you name it, man. I was just at a low point. And so my mentor now calls that the gift of desperation. And that's what I had. I had a breaking point. I just got to a certain point where I was failing college. My family was worried for me. I was getting in trouble with the authorities. And it was at that moment, bro. It was that moment. I can remember it vividly, being a sophomore, like 19, 20-year-old in college at the bottom of this apartment stairwell. And I was just like, this is enough. I can no longer live my life this way. And so from that point going forward, I decided to go cold turkey on virtually everything. I did my best with pornography and masturbation. I absolutely stayed away from drugs and alcohol, smoking Mary J. Nothing wrong with any of these substances necessarily, inherently, but if you're not using them intentionally, it's easy to get kind of carried away and distracted and using it as a coping mechanism. And that was for sure me. So that's when I started the road of like becoming more in tune with my body and developing more mindfulness and awareness around morning routine and habits and things like this, honestly. Podcasts, which weren't really popular back in the day, but things like YouTube. I started just subscribing to different YouTubers and started learning about mindfulness and like holistic health and medicine, and truly too also got into like bodybuilding and strength training and practicing more yoga. So from like basically 21 to where I'm at now at 29, I've just been on fire, and it's fulfilling now. Became a personal trainer, worked with our friend who I know too, Mr. EJ Lansing, just an all-around stand-up guy. Attracted new friendships and relationships in my life. And that's a phrase I like to share is your vibe attracts your tribe, and who you spend time with is who ultimately you become. And as I started to distance myself from drugs, alcohol, and those types of behaviors in that sort of scene, I started to distance myself from certain relationships. But beautiful thing with God, dude, when one door closes, other doors will begin to open, and you have to have the courage to step into that frequency and just let God do its thing. And that's where I'm at now. It's led me here to beautiful Colorado. I'm just surrounded by mountains and, looking forward to being here and impact lives every day.
Yeah, you are spitting fire, sir. This is good stuff. Yeah, I I meditate every morning. That's the first thing I do every morning. And I was watching some of your videos, and that's one of the key components to your morning routine. And I find that it has been invaluable for my sanity, I think, just in staying on track, because it's pretty easy to just let the wind blow you from here to there and get lost in the day. But it helps me stay centered and calmer, stay focused, I guess, to an extent. And then I've been going, you mentioned going to sleep. You have a alarm clock for when you wake up and for when you go to sleep. I'm not quite as strict on the going to sleep, but I'm pretty bad. Like when it's 10 o'clock, I'm like, let's go to bed. And it might be like 10:20 or 10:30 or something, or like 9:30, somewhere in that range. Sure. But that's been helpful, because I had the worst sleep for like a decade after getting out of the Army. I don't know. I was taking like a lot of pills, I guess, like while I was in there recreationally, and some to an extent, medically. It was prescribed, but you can kind of say things and they'll give you what you want if you try hard enough. And so I just kind of fucked with my whole system, my sleep. It's still to this day not perfect. I still wake up a few times a night, but I was waking up like over 10 times a night, for years, to the point where it was just like debilitating. I have a company. It's called SHEATH.com, or SHEATH Underwear, and it was just like kind of coasting for years. We wouldn't even have Monday like meetings, because I would be too tired because I didn't sleep the night before, and this went on for years. So somehow, fortunately, I had enough vision and focus to start it off somehow, and to get it going, kind of get the sailboat going in the right direction, and it was able to like take on a life of its own to an extent, I would say sometimes. I say that because it is alive. I mean, it's an entity. It's not, I created it, but I could go away, and as long as somebody took care of it, it would still live on. And so anyways, like a decade went by almost like that. But now I had like a surgery because I couldn't breathe through my nose, and I had like sleep apnea. That has been fixed. And just like this routine stuff has been really helpful. So hearing you speaking those truths I imagine there's a lot of other people out there like us or whatever that have issues, and we need influencers to kind of influence us in a positive direction sometimes.
Absolutely. I was curious, what were some of those initial steps that you were able to take in order to kind of, crawl out of that hole of like chronic back pain or medication and sleep, and how were you able to kind of do that?
I don't know. I mean, I want to like say my wife kind of helped to an extent, and meeting her, she was very helpful in guiding me in the right like direction. She was like, something's wrong with you. Because like we would sleep together, and she's like, you're not breathing. You need to go see a doctor. So I went to the doctor. They said I had like super obstructive sleep apnea and had to have a surgery. That helped tremendously. And the meditation, about a year ago, it was exactly a year ago, I went to this guy in Woodland Park. He teaches transcendental meditation. And that has, from the day that I had that training, I haven't stopped. I've meditated every day. So for every day this year.
Wow.
Yeah. And every morning I just get up, and I had heard a lot of people talking about it, like Seinfeld and some other comedian with Tom Papa. He mentioned how he was on Rogan, and he if he ever has a bad night's sleep, first thing he would do is get up and do this meditation, and it would kind of fill in the gap. And I was like, I need that, because every night is like kind of up and down. And so it's like, if I can fill in the gap of that energy, I can, have a better day. So I called the dude and got the appointment, and he teaches in this tri-state area, because we're both in Colorado. So he teaches in Wyoming and Nebraska, Kansas, whatever, and here, but he lives in my city. He lives 5 minutes from my house.
Wow.
So that was really kind of a blessing, because I might not have driven to Nebraska, and the fact that he lived in my city, I followed through with it, and that has changed my life tremendously.
Cool, man.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And I exercise. I try to stay positive, and doing this is helpful. The point of even doing this is to spread this message. I don't think I do it nearly as coherently as you do, but that is my intention.
Sure.
And having people come on to speak about it and kind of back me up, because it all started, with the law of attraction, The Secret, what you think about, you bring about. I wanted to be successful. This was like when I was your age. I'm 44, and you have to plant the seed. Like, that's what your mother was doing. She was planting the seed, and it might take a decade or two for a tree to grow, but you got to plant the seed, right?
For sure. Absolutely, man.
So, what else are you doing to promote this message?
Yeah, I appreciate that. So every day, I'd start my day without my phone. Ideally, I'm not perfect. I'll be honest, but I will do my part to start my day without my phone. And I'll sit up, I'll wake up, and I'll immediately go into a state of gratitude and just say, today is going to be an amazing day. And I have to be intentional about planting those seeds early on, because how you start your day a lot of the time will affect how the rest of the day unfolds.
Yeah.
So I'm really keen on that. And I really ask God too, in a state of meditation or prayer, to use me as a messenger for God, and to just, bring divine blessings and grace and love and compassion to people that I come across anywhere. And I'm not perfect, of course, but I try to, be a beacon of light wherever I go, holding doors open, just being kind and courteous, being patient and graceful. Obviously, too, the realm of social media, which I was very hesitant about for several years as it started to like rise up, and Facebook and Instagram, but essentially started seeing it more as a tool. And I was like, man, I could use this as a tool to, continue to, impact more lives and fulfill my purpose. So, conscious about what I promote and post on social media, and making sure that it's entertainment value, but also, inspirational, educational, things along those lines as well, is what I try and do on a daily basis for sure. And what I do through health coaching as well is really wonderful, to be able to go from like, frivolous positivity to then like really delving deep with people and finding out their insecurities, finding out their vulnerabilities, their weaknesses, their strengths, and kind of helping them, equip them with the tools and the resources to help build themselves up. Because essentially, like you mentioned with your story and similar with mine, it's difficult for a lot of people out there when they don't know what to do, they don't know what step to take. And it's nice to be that person now to offer that lending hand, if you will, and to rise them up. I also work in the infrared sauna space. I'm actually sitting right next to one of my infrared saunas right now. So I love, like health, harmony, biohacking, and using different devices to, upregulate your immune system, your cardiovascular health.
I have an infrared sauna at my house. It's a sun beam or something like that. It's like a...
Is it Sunstream by chance?
Yeah, I think it's Sunstream.
Okay, cool.
It's like it's not, it's for companies. I'm trying to think of the word right now, but Sunlighten. That's it. Sunlighten. That's the one. And my buddy owns a company. He does IVs. So
cool.
We're in Colorado, and he sticks people, and it's called Elevation Hydration, making a killing.
Nice.
Hydrating people. But he also had bought this infrared sauna, and so that's where he recommended that particular brand, because cool. You have some for like home use, but then I guess it's not industrial, but like professional level.
Yeah.
Anyways, I feel like they don't get that hot.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I like it as much as a regular sauna, but I have it now. So can you like kind of tell me why it's better?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, heat and exposing yourself to heat, whether that be the form of infrared or traditional dry saunas, it really boils down to people's preference, right? Both are amazing. You can derive incredible health benefits from utilizing both of them. With infrared, and the main difference between the two, because a lot of people will ask me, what's the difference? A traditional dry sauna typically heats up the air and the ambient temperature around you upwards of 200 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
And then that ambient air heats up your body, right? Where infrared doesn't heat up the air as much as it directly heats up your body using the infrared wavelengths from the emitters that you're essentially sitting around, right? They should ideally be all around you, depending on what kind of infrared sauna that you have. And with that being said, you're able to tolerate a lot more time in the sauna as opposed to traditional dry saunas. Now, again, it's a preference thing. Some people love the idea of like kind of like cold therapy with Wim Hof. Like it's a bit extreme. It's not maybe meant for everyone, although everyone could derive incredible value from it. It might not be everyone's cup of tea to have the intensity of super, super cold and also, super, super hot in a traditional dry sauna. And so the infrared is kind of a good middle ground for people to, maybe a little bit older that aren't looking to sweat for, too long, but just can kind of take a little bit of some heat. It's a great, step in that direction for them.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's fair. I like the intensity of this just extremely hot temperature. And I have like an ice bath in my front yard, but it's a block of ice at the moment. So I did get in on Christmas Day. I got a kettlebell and just kind of smashed it until I could sit in there. But at 30, it was like 32 degrees. I only stayed in for like 30 seconds.
Right on.
Which is, not, I think you don't get the benefits of the ice cold plunge until, after you need like a few minutes.
Sure.
That's what my brother says. He is in San Antonio. He goes to this place called Evolve. And, Steven, do you know Steven?
I've only had a chance to meet him in passing.
Okay.
Oh, no, Steven, I know pretty well. It's your brother who I've only met in passing.
Oh, right. So anyways, there's a place in San Antonio and it's called Evolve, and they have ice baths and red light therapy and saunas. And that's a sweet business to get involved with, I think, because it's becoming more prevalent in culture with Joe Rogan and podcasters and people like yourself putting it out there, the benefits of these therapies. I have everything. I have the red lights, I got the sauna, I got the ice bath. I could do it more. I need to do more yoga. I'm finding I just joined a gym recently with my neighbor, and I've been doing like weight training and just like on the treadmill. I mean, and some cardio stuff on the treadmill, but so now I'm sore. So I need to do yoga. Do you do yoga?
Oh yeah. I'm a big advocate and fan for yoga, especially for men. I think yoga can kind of get looked at as more of a female thing, right? And typically men aren't the most flexible, limber, and don't really like the aspects of like the yin nature that yoga provides of like slowing down and relaxing. And we like to hone in more on the yang of strength training and weightlifting, which I love that too. Don't get me wrong. But finding that balance, especially for us men, I think is super, super important. And yeah, I have a yoga practice that I practice and implement every single day, a sequence of stretches that I have been able to, dial in on where my tight spots are, if it's in my hips or hamstrings or quads, and how to open up my spine to work on my posture a little bit more as well. And I can tell for sure that making sure that I'm, doing my daily yoga practice keeps my body, I feel, in, top tier shape, along with my recovery and my energy and everything kind of flourishing by finding that balance between strength training, weightlifting, but also doubling down on recovery. The phrase I like is, train hard, recover harder. More.
When do you fit that into your day?
Yeah. So every morning I'll start my day off with stretching. Perhaps if I go to the gym, for instance, the first thing I'll do is just stretch, meditate, do some yoga, do like some hanging. I love to just simply hang on a bar for a couple of minutes or so. So really cultivate that early on is what I have found really well. And then also too, in the evening with my girlfriend before bed, we'll stretch each other out. We have like some stretches that we'll do on each other, partner stretches.
I like that.
Kind of just ease your body and relax yourself into a nice slumber.
Yeah, I need to do that more. Because in the morning, like first thing I do is I get my coffee, but I don't drink it until after the meditation. But I'll take it with me to my seat. I have a seat, and I'll have my big old bottle of water, like 32 ounces. And I was doing Wim Hof first thing, but then I went to meditation first thing, and then I would sometimes skip the Wim Hof. But now I'm back to Wim Hof, because and then meditation, because after Wim Hof, it's like it's easy to relax into a nice 10. I do like 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes, sometimes 5, but mostly like 10. Yeah. That's kind of my average, is 10 minutes. And that's enough time, because you'll sit there and I'll be like, man, this feels so good. I'm in it. I'm deep. And then just like after like 10 minutes, you're like, okay, I'm good now.
Right.
So, you don't have to, I don't like a timer. I just wait until my body says, okay, I'm good. I'm done. And then, beautiful. Yeah, then I'll drink my coffee, drink my water. I have a book I'm reading. I'll read a few pages of that. And then typically I go to work, which is, SHEATH but it's not like, usually it's typically not physical labor work, which I actually prefer as a man. I don't know. I get something intrinsic, or I feel better about myself doing work with my hands instead of just like meetings. And it's like a lot of meetings, and that doesn't, I don't really get a lot of meetings. It's more like stressful. I'm like, fuck, I gotta call this dude, I gotta call these people. But you do what you gotta do. It's part of it. Like, everything is virtual now. Everybody, all my friends, the only person I see in person on a daily basis is my wife.
Nice.
For the most part. And we're up here in the mountains, and it's cool, but I think there's something positive and beneficial about, people that work, like literally work for a living, maybe construction or something besides this internet sales. And it's a dream. It's like, oh, you're selling shit online. And especially if you're making millions, you're like, oh, I'm making millions. But you need to occupy your time with other things. So my wife and I started taking a pottery class. We're making ceramics and stuff, and that's pretty fulfilling. I need to figure out exactly what I want to do, because she suggested that, and it's good. I do enjoy it, but I feel like I would probably prefer to work with like wood, build shit. And I know we have a store here in Woodland Park, and there's an issue with the floor, and I was fixing it, and I'm like, I need to be doing shit like this. I gotta fix stuff. Can't just be. And I love selling underwear, and thank you everyone that has tried SHEATH underwear, but there's just more to life than the current thing. As I was watching your Instagram, and you're hearing you talk about Instagram, and it's like a tool to put your message out. Right. But then as you scroll to the next post, it's some big booty girl flexing or whatever she's doing. Oh yeah. It's and I'm like, is this healthy? I don't think, comparing my life, which is great, but you see these other people, and it's not like fair to yourself to be looking and seeing other people that are, like fitter and just better, or they look like their life is perfect. And I don't think anybody's is. Right. And you might think mine is, anybody like, oh, he's selling underwear or whatever, but it's just, we all have our struggles, and, we're all trying to do the best we can, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think it's really, really important for people to be super conscious about where their focus is going, because where focus goes, energy flows. Yes. And comparison, especially with social media, and all you're seeing with social media is simply the highlight reel of people's lives. They're not showing or expressing a lot of their vulnerabilities, or even right now, we got good lighting here.
Your lighting is better. I was like, this dude's tan and shit. I need to get a better ring light on.
I did just get back from Hawaii. I was there for 3 weeks. About 2 weeks ago.
Nice.
That was extraordinary, bro.
I need to travel too. Like, I haven't left the mountains in like 6 months, and I'm like, I got to get out of here. But I'm planning a trip soon, actually.
Right. Yes, I think it's important for people to, do things that juice them. And then you're mentioning things like, working from home or like selling underwear. Sure, it's awesome, but there are other aspects of your life that you need fulfillment in, and doing things more hands-on, or, working with wood or whatever it may be, or interacting with people more face-to-face, whatever it is for the certain individual. Exactly. Absolutely. You should always, prioritize the things that bring you joy and that fulfill you, that we should be doing that. And a lot of people, unfortunately, they work a job or some position that they hate. Yeah. And they just do that like nonstop, and they've just become so complacent living this like uncomfortable / comfortable life, and just years go by. even me reflecting on some of my relationships from back home in San Antonio, I look back at some of my friends, it's like they're doing the exact same shit they were doing 6 years ago, 7, 8, 9 years ago. I'm like, wow. And so I've heard this phrase, it's like a lot of people will live the same life year after year after year, without really, seeing what's out there, or like really going within themselves to explore what really brings them that intrinsic value and pursuing those sort of things. And that's where I feel freedom and liberation and joy is derived from, is whenever you're able to like, do those things that fulfill you. And you're mentioning things around travel. I would highly recommend, I love the mountains in Colorado. It's fantastic. Wouldn't live anywhere else, but it's nice to be able to kind of spread your wings and go somewhere tropical, or, travel around, go somewhere else for a little bit, even if it's just for a couple of days. I think it does a lot for the human mind and the psyche and the spirit to sort of like rejuvenate, to inspire, etc. And also too, now referencing back to social media, one really great quote is there, comparison is the thief of joy. Comparison's the thief of joy. And, doing your part. And then what I like about meditation too, as you were sharing, is there's a phrase I love, and that's between stimulus and response, there is a space. And within that space, there lies your ability to choose your response. And in that choice, ultimately lies your freedom or your demise, right? And I feel like with meditation, is it helps to kind of broaden that space between the stimulus and the response, and sort of catch your mind or your thoughts or the different patterns that are starting to kind of unravel. You can say, whoa, why am I thinking that way? Why am I feeling that way? And you can kind of begin to start the neurogenesis of like rewiring, right? So yeah, whenever, I also love this phrase too, is like, a lot of times we can fall into envy when we're on social media and like comparison. We have to understand that these people are just showing what's best or what's beautiful about their life, and learn to not be jealous, but to be zealous is the phrase I like to share, is like, be happy for them, like be genuinely happy for them, and like feel that energy.
Yeah, no, that's positive.
Sure.
How did, what did you do in Hawaii? What was all that about?
Ooh. So it was a combination of a few different things. I'm grateful to have this lifestyle of working remotely and, working online with health coaching. And of course, I love working in person too. That's absolutely crucial for my life as well. November and December, as you're aware of here in Colorado, November is sort of like this transitional month where it's like too cold to go camping in the mountains, but it's quite not cold enough to like take advantage of the powder and to go snowboarding and stuff like that.
Right.
So I was like, I'd like to, travel somewhere tropical during the months of November and maybe beginning of December before the holiday season. My girlfriend's birthday is also December 6th, and she's kind of itching to go somewhere tropical. And nice. I love Hawaii. I've been a few times to a couple of the different islands and hadn't got a chance to go to Big Island yet. And so I was like, hey babe, like let's line up an Airbnb. Let's do Big Island for your birthday. And also she's celebrating sobriety. She's gone almost 4 months now without a single sip of alcohol, which I'm just incredibly proud of her for. A lot of people have slipped into that, including myself, where from high school, like 16, from like 26 and she's 28, for roughly 12 years straight, she would drink alcohol, on a weekly or daily basis. And so this is the first time in the last 12 plus years of her life that she's been able to go this long sober. And that is just extraordinary. She's getting so many down. So I wanted to reward her for her sobriety and for her birthday, and to kind of like get away from the cold and take advantage of some of the tropical weather down there, and then come back and now be in kind of like prime powder and snowboarding season.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet. Sobriety is a whole new trip. Mm-hmm. I did sober October, and we're about to do dry January. And I think it's, there's just a clear difference in productivity for me in months like that when I'm abstaining from, and I don't even drink that much. I might have like 2 beers or something, but it compounds, and it definitely diminishes your output, I think. And I sleep better when I'm not doing it. It's like a weird habitual thing that we do here, and I'm just like a victim of, no, I'm not a victim, but just social not even social pressure, but maybe at the beginning, because I remember being 15, 16, I just played basketball.
Mhm.
I was perfectly happy. I wasn't like, I knew I need something to make me feel better. Because I felt fine. But I moved to a new city. I met friends that smoked weed,
Mhm.
and I didn't do it for quite a while. But eventually, you kind of like the people you hang around are going to influence you, and eventually, so you
Oh
want
yeah.
to pick those people wisely.
Mhm.
And now I feel like I don't hang out with anybody. So then that can lead to a whole other issue,
Right.
because now you're left to your own like devices, I guess, and maybe patterns that you've built up over the course of a lifetime. And
Mhm.
um, but I like Rogan. Rogan
Yeah.
is doing the Sober October. I've done it for the last 4 years. Whether I was completely successful each year is debate. Not definitely didn't make it to the end
Sure.
of the month, but that's a positive influence, and putting that out there has been helpful, because you need at least a month to not to be sober during the year. LOL.
Mhm.
But
That's great.
you mentioned earlier, like starting your day with being grateful. I
Mhm.
remember I used to watch The Secret every morning, like
Wow.
and maybe I would only watch a couple of chapters,
Sure.
but every morning, and that's how I would start my day. And I feel like that was part of what got me to where I am, just staying dedicated to focused on this positivity, law of attraction,
Mhm.
and gratitude was a major point in that film. And one of the
Mhm.
guys, it showed him getting out of bed, and with each step he took, he would say, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." And it is way better than waking up and complaining like right out of bed. Take it
For
easy.
sure.
Yeah, there's so much to be grateful for.
Yeah.
It's like infinite. You could.
Amen. Yeah, there's a couple things. So I believe that gratitude is sort of like this key that helps to unlock abundance. And there's this really amazing woman. She's all about law of attraction. Her name is Esther Hicks. She goes by
Mm-hmm,
Abraham Hicks.
mm-hmm.
And there's a practice that she shares that
I
is
love her.
really good, because sometimes, gratitude can maybe be a little bit difficult for people to begin to do. And you have to understand that your mind is a lot like a garden, okay? And here in the garden, you need to make sure you're standing at the gates of that garden and monitoring what's coming in and what's coming out. Now, with your mind as well, your mind, like a garden, will grow weeds automatically. The weeds, you don't have to do shit. They come, they grow, right? The negative thoughts, it seems like the ANTS, the ants, is what this guy, Dr. Daniel Amen, talks about, the automatic negative thoughts. Man, those bitches seem to just like come up naturally all the time. And it could be a collective consciousness thing, like you mentioned, some of the upbringings and things that you were imprinted upon, et cetera. I mean, the list can go on that. But if you are not like doing your part to like monitor those ants through meditation and helping to like extinguish those puppies, right? You can find yourself in a tough spot. So anyhow, there's this practice called the rampage of appreciation, and I'd love to do this with anybody I'm hiking with. I do it with my partner quite often when we're out hiking in nature. It's a really great place to do it, but you can do it anywhere. And that's just sort of like get into this streamline of consciousness of just saying things that you're grateful for, and start kind of small, and then take some time to actually do it. And as you just mentioned right now, as you cultivate that practice, you'll find literally a million and one things, infinite amount of things to be grateful for. In which at first maybe like you kind of maybe didn't think about it like that, or took for granted, or didn't really have that sort of realization, because so many of us have that negativity bias and we just fall into that.
Yeah,
So,
it's so annoying, and you have people around you that are negative. It's hard to like overpower them with positivity, right? Because it's like the negative seems to win out. I don't know.
yeah, good point.
It can, and it's because it's automatic. Like I was just thinking of a Kanye lyric. Shout out to Kanye, my boy. Just kidding. Kind of. But with all the recent
shenanigans.
Yeah. But he one of the lyrics is like, I always find something wrong. Because you can always find something wrong. It's so like, Jesus, how that's like the easiest thing. It's harder to like swim against the current and find those positive things. And I mean, I remember writing a list of 100 things, but it's just like trees and mountains and the sun and the moon and the stars and the air to breathe and your fingers and your eyes. And like, it's also pretty easy, your loved ones. And but it's also easy to be like, well, it's getting dark too early. I mean, there's a million things that you can find wrong with, or comparing yourself to other people, like, etc. So, but I like, how do you overpower negativity, like a negative person? How do you get them to be positive?
Yeah, it's a good call. That's a great question. It's difficult. It can be difficult, I would say you can always lead the horse to the water, right? But you can't force the horse to drink the water. And if some person in your life is just sort of showing up a certain way, you can strive to have like a really heart-to-heart conversation with them and be able to communicate some of the things that you're noticing with them and sort of set the context and the container in a way where you're wanting to just share something from your heart, and your intention is to be pure and to provide light and insight, but not necessarily to diminish them or make them feel bad, because people can get quick to get triggered, as we know in this society.
For sure.
So I think conversation's a great place to start. And then therapy too, you can point people in that direction as well. There's something called the law of familiarity. When it comes to certain people, it's difficult when that negative person is like you're in your family or whatever it may be, and you have to kind of deal with them, to a lack of a better term, on a daily basis. There's something called the law of familiarity, and that's this. So essentially, you have somebody you have a relationship with, like your wife or a good friend of yours, and there's this certain level of familiarity that's there, right? And you might recognize or recognize something new or learn something new and acknowledge, oh, this is so cool. And you might tell them, hey, like, I've heard that, drinking this sort of plant-based milk is better than other plant-based milks, or better than dairy. And you'll tell them that. And because of the law of familiarity, their likelihood to listen to you is like just not there. But if they hear the same information, the same information from some other guy on a podcast somewhere, they will be 10 times more likely to just adopt and accept that as true. And so there's this context of law of familiarity with people that maybe we want to try and have a conversation with, but they don't want to take you serious because they've seen you pick your boogies, they've seen you fart and shit and drink.
Right.
So there's that barrier there. And then the biggest thing I would say for sure, and this is kind of the hardest thing to do, but ultimately I think it'll lead to the best, results for you long term. If certain individuals are not really a good influence on you in your life, I would say distance yourself from them. Yeah. And I know that sounds kind of harsh. And I know there's this, cancel culture that we're in nowadays, ghosting and stuff like that. But, really, monitor your associations and who you're spending time with and what you're allowing to influence your mind. And people who gossip and are negative or dwelling on the past all the time, like, that's not going to do anything fruitful for you long term in terms of your health and your overall well-being. So I would say distance yourself from people and notice as you begin to kind of close a door on a certain relationship, God and the universe, spirit will just open up. The creator will open up and provide other opportunities for you as well. In that standpoint of abundance, there's just incredible people and circumstances and situations that are always constantly available for you if you sort of like tune into that frequency, if you will. And it can be a lot easier said than done.
No, but you got to aim towards a direction. Otherwise, you're just kind of like floating around. And I like that abundance theory. I mean, you're like people, you can think what's the opposite of abundance?
Scarcity.
Yeah, scarcity. And like you have an abundance mindset or a scarcity mindset, and the people that have the scarcity mindset, or you end up in a scarcity sort of environment, I think, ultimately, where things are lacking instead. And I love Esther Hicks. She was actually in the original Secret, the movie. Nice. They actually like ended up cutting her part out and putting in another lady it's nowhere near as badass as Esther.
Sure.
A lot of my friends like will go see her and they're like, she's coming into town, Abraham Hicks, and she's like a medium, and she'll like start what is that where channeling. Thank you. Yeah, that's amazing. And it's like, is she drawing from the infinite? Is she just like, is it coming through her, or is it within her? But either way, it's all pretty solid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen her ever?
I've never got a chance to see her live. I've actually heard she lives in the Boerne, Texas area, which is, close to San Antonio, Texas.
She's come up here, I know, like 2 or 3 times, because my friends are super into that also, who are also business owners.
Nice.
Coincidence? I don't know. But like, you opening your mind up to these frequencies and mindsets, and it took a while for me to get out of the rat race mindset. I worked in cubicles in my early 20s, if not in some kind of like pizza delivery or fast food restaurant. And that's where you end up sort of when you make a lot of bad decisions. You're talking about like getting in trouble with the law and barely making it through high school and college or something. And that was like my exact experience when I was younger. And then I actually went to jail and got out. And I was just like thinking the best I could do, this is horrible, but it was be a janitor. I was like, that's going to be the best I will amount to. But like, fortunately, my dad sort of saved me from the environment I was in. I was living in Georgia. It was a small town. My friends were into drugs and whatever, and like up to no good, essentially. And the fucked up thing is, one of my buddies from Georgia that I was hanging out with, and this is like 20 years ago, he's like, he's back in jail. And I'm just like, I know, we're like 20 years later. So that cycle and that environment, sometimes if you can't break free, you're doomed to like continue that pattern. And so my dad like paid all my fines, because I was like in my 20s, like I was 21. Exactly. I was 21. I turned 21 in jail, and I got out. And anyway, so he flew me to California, and I was living with him and got a job as a maintenance worker at in an office building. And that was pretty sweet. And then I was doing these temp jobs, and I got another job as a accounts payable clerk. And that was actually pretty sweet. So once I was in doing accounts payable, I was like, I could do this. And then I got into payroll, and somewhere along that line, like in that time frame, I came across Think and Grow Rich, which I read. And I remember I would just I was taking it seriously. I don't know why. I was like, what else do you have what other options do you have? Like, it can't hurt to give this a shot and try to embody the characteristics of these people who have done great things in the past. Like, what makes them different? They weren't that different. Turns out you don't have there's a lot of geniuses that are doing entry-level positions in different jobs, and like super high IQ, or they're like, you're very tall or super handsome or whatever. But it doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Like, you don't have to be exceptional per se to be successful. It's like a mindset, and it's been laid out by the people who've done it. And it's just, you can follow those principles and be working for yourself. Like, you Well, like, I guess it was your mom, you said earlier, kind of like laid this foundation, but have you read any books that have been instrumental and kind of, or maybe corroborate what she was saying and solidify those ideas?
Absolutely, man. Yeah, there's a lot of like parallels and then like kind of similarities in your story along with my story as well. And for me too, around that age, young 20s, I had gotten introduced to this industry of network marketing and went to all these like events and saw Tony Robbins speak live. And
love Tony Robbins.
yeah, man, he's badass. And Bob Proctor, who was a big proponent
Bob Proctor, he died recently.
Passed.
Yeah, I know. I love him. Oh man, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, but basically, yeah, Think and Grow Rich was pinnacle for me along my growth and my journey. Another great book I'd love that helped me out a lot, and I still reference to, is The Four Agreements.
Ooh, like, we're about to read that as a company. I just bought it for my whole team.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And I've read it, but I haven't read it in like 5 or more years, so I want to reread it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, a lot of healthy, great things to bestow upon you and learn from that book, Four Agreements. And then started getting into listening to more audiobooks and The Alchemist and just going back, The Business of the 21st Century with Robert Kiyosaki and learning about leverage and residual income and real estate. And
he wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right?
Yep,
Robert
Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
I read that one. I didn't read this other one you just mentioned.
For sure. Yeah, so just started getting into those sorts of books early on, The Untethered Soul, and go through a good list. Think and Grow Rich. There's also another one by Napoleon Hill, the same author, called Outwitting the Devil.
Yes.
Which was very, very profound for me to read at a young age. And then tuning into that documentary, The Secret, as well, and just understanding it. And, one really personal experience around that same time, I was starting to experiment with psilocybin, AKA mushrooms, right?
Yeah.
And one of these trips I had, man, I was like 22. I was tripping balls. We were on a golf course, San Antonio, late at night. So it was like pristine, beautiful grass, nature all around us. The stars starting to kind of come out. And I remember just like saying words, just sort of like by myself, thinking words and then saying them out loud. And then I began to create this connection and develop this understanding and this awareness around words and like the energy that words carry. And I really was fucking tripping out with the word love and then the word hate. And just saying them and just like noticing like somatically within my body the different kind of emotions that would elicit or like how it would make me feel emotionally, right?
Wow.
And I was like, fuck. I was like, damn, that's what, going back to the Four Agreements, one of them is be impeccable with your word. And just noticing how, dude, the words are energy. And like what you say and what you think is affecting you, right? And there's another little interesting nuance too, is like, what's one of the first things you learn to do in elementary school? You learn how to spell, right? Now listen to that. Your words
casting
are spells.
A spell.
You learn how to spell. So I'm like, fuck, dude. I was like, oh my God. Like that helped me a lot, kind of start connecting some dots in terms of like rewiring my mindset and learning to just be more optimistic, right? And there's a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk who I love a lot too. And he had shared a post recently about how literally they were doing studies and research with like people who are optimists actually live healthier and longer lives versus people who are a little bit more pessimistic, right? And I'm like, dude, that for me, makes sense because again, where focus goes, energy flows. I do my absolute best to see the silver lining in every single situation and really try and catch myself if I notice I'm starting to be a little bit more of a victim mind, or I'm complaining, or if I'm gossiping. And so just coming back to that Four Agreement of being impeccable with my word and just noticing like what I'm thinking and sharing and what kind of effect it's having on my body. Like my girlfriend and several friends were like, dude, Devon, I never see you get angry. I never see you, get upset or mad or sad. And to be honest, I mean, I really don't, because I know, there's a time and a place for grieving for loss or, being a little bit upset or whatever is totally fine. But I know ultimately that like getting angry easily or triggered or whatever is just not going to serve you long term. It's not going to be fruitful. It doesn't, help create healthy solutions. It doesn't, provide, or elicit like good energy. So for me, I'm like always, standing guard for my energy, my mindset, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's smart. Keep those gates closed. Don't let any of that negativity in. That's interesting. I try to stay positive also. And I mean, it's just better, you're going to complain all the time, or you can, because again, it's like a flip of a coin. You can choose whether you want to be positive or negative. And it's almost just like easier to be negative in my opinion, but there's so much to be positive about. So and I like that. I'm glad we're reading the 4 agreements.
Yeah, man.
Because then I've read it and there's like a 5th agreement and I have it at my house. I'm like, it wasn't quite as good as the 4 agreements, but he's trying.
Yeah.
Trying to get some more book sales.
Exactly.
But I'm excited to read that. I'm glad you mentioned that. And this is, I didn't know like really much about you. Stephen was telling me you were like into biohacking and just you're a personal trainer and clearly very positive, and you must have had a positive impact on him to have him like recommend you. But I've had more fun on this podcast than I anticipated. And so and we have a few more minutes, but I want to kind of see if you'll do this again relatively like in the next 6 months or something. I think you'd be a good guest to have on here.
Yeah, possibly even in person if you have that opportunity.
That's right. Yeah. I do have an in-person studio with all the mics and cameras and stuff. Most people don't come up here. Sure. So that could be really good. And that's funny, the story about you tripping and the words and love and hate and the energy. Your word, be impeccable with your words. This is all, it's kind of, you forget some of the things you learn along the way.
Right.
And stuff that got me to where I am. It's like, I don't think I would have got here if I had been kind of I've been in a little bit of a funky mind state recently, and I've been blaming it on the weather because it has been getting dark here, and and there is, I guess, like some seasonal affect.
Oh yeah, that's science for sure.
Yeah,
vitamin D, sunshine, and being stripped away from that, or it goes down at like 3 o'clock now, and for sure it plays an effect on your overall mental health and well-being and your endorphins and biochemicals inside your body with your hormones and stuff like that, for sure.
Yeah. Do you do anything? So you're a personal trainer.
More health coaching now. I've transitioned to doing more online holistic health coaching, and I really work on 5 key areas when it comes to health. Number 1 is going to be sleep. That's something that a lot of, especially us here in the Western world, are getting not a sufficient amount of it. 2 is going to be the realm of mental health. 3 is going to be nutrition. 4 is movement, and 5 is hydration. And I love this book. You should definitely check out too if you haven't. It's called Atomic Habits.
We just read that as a company. That was the last book we finished, and that was actually really helpful in me actually successfully completing this year's Sober October.
Wow.
Because of the
systems.
The system, exactly. You positive reinforcements and negative reinforcements, and obviously my thing is mostly weed, although I've been drinking a little bit more as of late, but for like a decade or whatever, how long it's been, 2 decades smoking weed pretty much daily, pretty much all day. Even at night, I would, wake up in the middle of the night and it would help me go back to sleep. But I would be restless. It was the most insane thing. So I smoke way less weed than I ever have smoked. Anyways, point being, if you're going to try to not do something, maybe don't have it in the house.
Right.
Especially not in a conveniently located spot for you to just go and light a bowl and go about your day, because it would, it's like all day, every day for the most part for decades. And so reading that book, it was coincidental, like the timing of coming up on Sober October, and we went to Vegas and were able to during Skankfest, which you may or may not have ever heard of.
No,
but it's a comedy festival. It's kind of like a music festival, but for comedians and all the edgy comedians that we spot. It's kind of like Joe Rogan comedians, the people that go on his podcast, but not he didn't show up, but like Tim Dillon and Mark Norman and Shane Gillis and Louis J. Gomez. You may have never heard of those people, but they've all been on there, and that's been a little bit of our strategy at Sheath, is because I wanted Rogan. He's sponsored by another underwear company, so all of the guests that would go on, not all of them, but the ones where I was like, oh, this guy's fucking hilarious. So reach out to them. Do you want money? They just say yes, and then they read our ads for us. And a lot of them typically actually do like the underwear, which is cool, because I'll be like watching them on Instagram sometimes, and you can see like the waistband, or you'll see like the leg line, and they're wearing them. And if they're wearing them and not when you're paying them to wear them or whatever, that's like, okay, sweet.
Absolutely.
I like that. And you can tell when you're paying someone to do an ad read, and they're just doing an ad read. Do you watch UFC at all?
Oh, yeah.
And Sugar Sean O'Malley. Everyone kind of knows who he is, and we recently sponsored his podcast. And
oh, cool, man!
It was cool, and it was actually, we got a decent amount of ROI from that, because one of the Logan Paul happened to be on that episode, and he's a big name, and
for sure.
YouTube. But Sean's co-host, who's also his coach, the redheaded dude, I don't know his name, but he was just like, Sheath underwear. I'm holding my phone.
Sure.
Go to sheathunderwear.com, and it's got a pouch and this and that. It was the driest read you could ever heard. I was like, we're not doing this again with you guys. But other guys, they like love it, and part of that is the secret, and what you think about, you bring about, and like following your heart and your intuition. I have a good idea. We had a great product. It's a great product.
Yeah.
I stand behind it, like the quality and what we say it does, but then we sponsor fighters and we sponsor comedians, which I'm also into. And so we get to sponsor people that I'm fans of. And so that's pretty sweet. And I get to talk to people like yourself, and you've definitely brightened my day. And I'm sure anyone that's watching will also have their spirits lifted. So I really appreciate you coming on here and taking the time to share, some of this information and knowledge. And can you tell the people where they could find you, and if they were interested in, getting some coaching from you or whatever, how that would work?
Certainly. Yeah. I just want to share my gratitude right now for you and hosting me here on this podcast. I'm extremely grateful for this chance to drop in with you and connect and talk about our experiences and inspire people and share sort of our journey and what can hopefully be able to provide value and insight for other people along their own journey as well, for sure. Yeah, absolutely grateful for that, and look forward to meeting you in person and connecting and possibly doing something like this again in person.
That would be fabulous.
I'm also super stoked to get some Sheath underwear. Funny enough, I was sharing with a friend of mine that I'm about to go on a little bit of a podcast, and he was like, hey, as I was like, with Sheath underwear, he's like, dude, I love Sheath underwear. I've got Sheath underwear. I was like, wow, bro, he loves them. And I'm like, that's freaking sweet, dude. So super stoked to get a pair myself. And so people can find me anywhere on Facebook, Instagram. I'm Devon Suggs, Devon Suggs. I'm recently launching on TikTok too, and so I'm Thrive with Devon on TikTok, and you can DM me anything at any time, comment on anything. I'd love to engage and lend a helping hand to anyone who's needing some help or looking for some guidance or some clarity or whatever it may be. It's what I live to do.
It's Devon Suggs on Instagram, but don't just go straight to his page and don't look at all the other stuff, because it's all like, I'm just joking, but what would it's like it's just, it's real, but it's not real. You know what I'm saying? Like you were saying, it's just like highlight reels of people's lives. So don't.
For sure.
I'm actually gonna be taking a hiatus from Instagram just because it's like, this is not good. Just looking at these pictures of other people's lives, and I'm not. But I like what you were saying about feeling happy for them and stuff, and they're living their best lives and whatever. That's way better than being, comparing. And in reality, in comparison, I'm probably doing way better. But these little snapshots of their life or whatever, you don't want to see. I see right now, but I'm gonna be like on a fast.
Little social media detox fasting.
Yeah, it's not benefiting me. I don't find, other than, but you got to use it. That's the thing. If you're doing shit online, you got to. It's like a blessing and a curse. But I'm gonna find the balance, and
that's it.
I do appreciate you coming on once again, and I guess all the links are on your social media.
Precisely.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for tuning in to another episode of the Robert Patton Global Podcast. Please do like and subscribe onto my YouTube channel, Robert Patton Global, also the SHEATH channel. If you're watching them, if you're getting anything out of it, just hit that subscribe button because it helps out a lot, and we're trying to spread the message of positivity here. So we'd appreciate your help. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.